Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our regular council meeting. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we can all please remain standing for a moment of silence for our first responders and military members, please. Thank you. May be seated. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Wallace.
Present.
Councilmember Soto.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra.
Present.
Mayor Moran.
Present.
For the record, Councilmember Roth is not in attendance.
Thank you. Next, we have closed session announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No reportable action at this time. However, the closed session meeting has been continued to the close of the regular meeting tonight. So at the close of the regular meeting tonight, the council will go back into closed session. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, are there any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I believe there was a request made.
Item 17.
Yes, Councilmember Roth requested that item number 17 be moved to the next meeting.
Okay, so we have a request by Councilmember Roth to move item 17, discussion and direction regarding recognition of Lupe and Aurora Garcia, to our next regular meeting. I'm okay with that. Any other requests?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Any other comments? Any other changes? Okay, seeing none, moving forward, citizen comments. This section of the agenda allows members of the public to address the city council on any item not on the agenda. Members of the public, when recognized by the mayor, should come forward to the lectern and identify themselves. Comments are normally limited to 3 minutes. In accordance with state open meeting laws, no action will be taken by the city council this evening. Is there any citizen comments for any items not on the agenda? Is there any comments on the phone? Hearing none, coming back into the chamber. Any comments in the chamber for any items not on the agenda? If you can please state your name for the record.
Julio Valadez. I am not able to stay until the end again this time. My back hurts a lot, even just moving, so I can give you a report right now if you want on what you guys requested, or we can, I know we have a meeting tomorrow, so. I do have some notes. I know it's on number 18, I think, what you guys wanted to discuss, but I cannot stay all night.
Can I request that we move item 18 up in the agenda after consent and public hearing?
Or we can do it to the next meeting.
That would be better, because I also have a lot of stuff that I have questions on. Like, for example, for vendors, there's only $2,800, but there should be at least about $20,000. So there's questions I have.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion that or request that we continue this item to the next meeting.
Mr. Valadez, when you said we have a meeting, was that in regard to a committee meeting or your own personal calendar?
Tomorrow, there's a meeting with Ricky Ricardo, city staff, to see what they need to get him paid.
Yeah.
Or not him, but the nonprofit that we used for.
Let's just go ahead and
Here.
move this. Just go ahead and move this to the next regular meeting, and then those reports, anything related to the 4th of July, could be done then at the next regular meeting. Is that okay?
Yeah. That way they can have their meeting and get out the.
So IC 2, 3, Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
All right. So next regular meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So any citizen comments in the chamber? Seeing none, bringing it back to the dais at 7:13, closing the citizen comments. Next, we have announcements and reports. Supervisor Rodrigo Espinosa, announcements and reports.
Good evening, council. Just a report that I attended the Child Support Awareness Month event last week here in Memorial Park. I think it turned out great. There are Child Support Director chose to have it in Livingston. I know the department gave out hundreds of backpacks. There's a huge line. I don't know if I don't see any of you there. So I know that they gave out a lot of backpacks. The kids were all overjoyed, and I think also all the vendors. There's plenty of vendors that gave out plenty of school supplies, being that next week school's going to start. So hopefully, as well as hopefully our police department is active next week when the school starts. Make sure the kids are safe, and so I would appreciate that too as well. And today on the Board of Supervisors meeting we approved the half-cent sales tax to be so that it can be on the ballot for November. So that's a half-cent sales tax for 30 years, and we got it to make sure that it was 30 years, not without didn't have an end date, but now it has a 30 years end date. Some groups in Merced wanted to make sure there was a 30-year an end date on there as well. So that supposedly is going to be provide for the county, including the cities, $25 million a year when it starts, and so that'll be divided up with all the departments and the cities. Eventually, the numbers that I heard this morning was $2.1 million for the city of Merced, city of Los Banos around just over $1 million, and city of Atwater by 800,000. Livingston about 368,000 a year. And the last two cities about 250. The smallest cities about guaranteed $250,000 a year. So everybody wins, and for public safety. And so if we get close to $400,000, that'll at least pay for another officer or a little bit more, and anything in public safety. So I know that's gonna. Livingston's proposing a 1 cent sales tax, so that'll be just for the city of Livingston. But this half-cent sales tax, hopefully. Everybody listening will support the half-cent sales tax in the county and in the cities as well. So I know it's going to be tough, but it can be done. And like I said, we all need public safety and fire and the district attorney as well services. So all the public safety services that that we don't like. Nobody likes crime, but it happens, and the county has to support public safety as well as make sure the criminals are not there. So, other than that, I just was driving through Briarwood and I didn't see a name, a street sign name on Cherrywood and Briarwood. If you can please check with Public Works, make sure that street signs. I usually, when I drive around, I like to make sure that every street has a street sign, or if it's getting old, that it's changed. So other than that, I don't have anything else right now. Any questions?
Thank you.
Any questions from the public? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have city staff announcements and reports. Mr. John Ramirez, Interim Chief of Police.
Good evening, council and members of the audience. John Ramirez, Interim Chief of Police of the City of Livingston. So this evening, I'm just going to go over a quick report from the 4th of July this year. It's just going to be a short PowerPoint with some photographs. I just want to give a quick update on some of the things that we did and some statistics as well. So I chose to go back from June 6th to July 6th on the stats for the month. That's usually the time we start getting a lot of the firework calls. Normally, even though throughout the year we'll still get some, during January, February, different times of the year. But for those 30 days from June 6th to July 6th, as you can see in 2023, we had about 62 reported fireworks for that month. And then in 2024, we had 98, so that's an increase. So it looks like we had about 36 more calls for that time than last year. And then the reported fires, these were just fires within the city, most likely from fireworks. Last year we had 19, and this year we had 13, so that was a decrease of 6. And then citations issued, last year we had 2 citations during that time frame, and this year we had 6, so that's about 4 extra. And then the injuries, we had none last year, and we had 1 injury this year. And then if you look on the right-hand side, that's going to be the 4th of July specifically. I know the event we had started on the 5th and went through the 7th. So again, this is the 4th of July specifically. So last year we had 20 reported firework calls, and this year we had 39, so almost double. And then fires for the same day, last year 3, and this year we had 5. And then citations issued for the 4th of July, last year we had 1, and this year we had 4. And then injuries for the 4th of July, last year none, and this year 0 as well. And then just some things that we did this year. As you can see, there was an increase of almost 40 extra calls that came in. I believe that was from a campaign that we started a month prior to the first week of July. So each Friday on our social media, we put out something new, whether it was some of the laws or rules that the city and county operate by. It could have also been just some education bulletins that we had. We also implemented some yard sale signs or yard signs that we put with the dangers and just kind of some safety clues for the citizens, as long as a yard sign with the new fine increase of $1,000. We also had officer education. What I mean by that, educating them with administrative citations, which we were not really giving those out prior to this. But with the new posting ordinance, that's something that we were able to handle now. And we just went to a new citation company, but they're not up and running yet to do the administrative citations. So the city had to actually take care of those this year for us. So that was just kind of training the officers how to get those and giving them the actual administrative citations, who only was in possession of the code enforcement officer. And then just teaching them through briefings, again, the 2 or 3 weeks prior to the 4th of July of the Livingston Municipal Codes, the certain health and safety sections, and then just doing surveillance. And I quote up there in the hot areas, so that would be based off of prior years. And during that month of just calls for service we were getting, a lot of, like on the Vieira side of the south side of the city, the north side over off of Olds and that area. But in reality, it's, the whole city was kind of hot on the 4th of July. But again, just keeping in some of the areas where we were getting calls for services is where we chose to kind of do some surveillance and code 5ing. And then meeting with the allied agencies, so that was getting in touch with local agencies surrounding us and kind of exchanging ideas on some of the stuff that they were doing. And if they were doing any type of operations, we also wanted to be involved. So for instance, if the sheriff's department was doing some surveillance or going to do an undercover buy for fireworks, we wanted to be involved if it was going to bring them to Livingston. And we also provided the same to them. So just kind of sharing intel, which we've never really done that before. And then also with CAL FIRE, talking with those folks and even trying to get some of their law enforcement CAL FIRE out here with us. But they were aware that we wanted to for them to assist for that week, and I think they did come out, but because of the spread so thin, I'm not sure they were able to come out as much as they wanted to. And then one of the things that we were able to do as a city was to increase the fine this year. I know last year, we thought that was done, but during some good work this year, we were able to increase the fine to $1,000 for the hosting and possession of the fireworks. And so that was an increase from, I think it was $150 was the minimum prior to that. And then meeting with our crime analyst over at the task force, getting them information of stuff that we were looking for. So, throughout the year, we're looking for gangs, drugs, and any type of criminal activity. So this year, we also had them look out for any kind of fireworks sales, any kind of illegal possession of firework calls that they were getting, or anything kind of on social media that would kind of send a red flag to us, anything at Livingston or kind of Merced County in general. And then attempting to do undercover buys and stings from Facebook Marketplace. One of the key things this year was PS4 or PS5 controllers. People would put that out there, and that kind of meant we're selling fireworks. We tried diligently to set that up. We actually had a few of them set up, but things didn't go as planned. But that's kind of how it works sometimes. And then a nice fireworks seizure during our multi-agency task force, during our operation that we did. That would have been a seizure of I believe it was a 10 by 10 storage in the city of Merced. So that was basically from Livingston PD's case, but Merced was actually the ones that took that report for that. And then just increasing patrol for 4th of July itself. It was a little helpful to have the event this year go on the 5th, 6th, and 7th because that freed up our patrol side of things. So anybody that was off on the 4th of July had to come in and work extra patrol. They were in two-man unit cars, and again, diligently looking for people lighting off fireworks, parties, and things of that nature. And you'll see some of the seizures on the left-hand side. That picture there is from the actual 4th of July. And the one on the right side is from the large-scale operation that we did. That's a whole, I believe, 10 by 10 storage locker with numerous pounds of illegal fireworks that were seized, confiscated. And then again, on the left side, that's just some of the debris from the illegal fireworks that were happening throughout the city. And then some more photographs of fireworks that were confiscated by officers during the firework detail on the 4th of July. So I would say overall, this year we did a lot of different things that we normally do, kind of really thinking outside the box to curb and kind of educate the public. I think the numbers aren't really where I would like them to be, but I think, getting the word along that we did give 6 citations. I think there was actually 7 at $1,000 a pop. That's going to hopefully spread the word for next year, and hopefully those numbers will be cut in half, if not more. But it will take a little bit of time. But again, just doing some different things this year. You'll also see that the call volume did go up. So I think just putting stuff out on social media, letting the public know that they can call. And I know sometimes they get frustrated because we're not citing somebody or we don't see it. But it is really hard to go out there and catch somebody, especially when there's 15 houses lighting legals and then one lighting illegals. And then when you pull up to the house, they hide them in the garage under a blanket. And I was out there kind of looking at 15 different fireworks going off, and it was just crazy. But we did what we could, and I really hope next year we'll do a lot better. Any questions or comments?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. John, first of all, you guys did an awesome job. When I hear complaints from citizens that they got cited, and I know I forwarded that to the city and everybody, that tells me that you guys did an awesome job. That pretty much, when they tell me we only lit a few, I don't care if you lit half. You violated the rule, there we are, Now, we still have, and this is nothing new, people still lighting those illegals out there, Are we still enforcing those? Are we still trying to?
So the stuff that I just mentioned, that was kind of a...
That was a particular timeline.
Yes, but still, if people are still lighting these illegal fireworks, they can't even light sane fireworks even at this time. They would still be in violation. But definitely the illegal ones, if they are caught with that still applies, $1,000 fine.
Yeah, but you're still going out and trying to catch?
Yes.
Okay. That's what I
From my understanding, from July 4th or 5th, probably I don't think we've had any calls since then, unless,
Yeah. I mean, my dog, my poor dog,
Yeah.
she had a nervous breakdown for a few days there,
yeah,
But thank you.
welcome.
Do you know any more details on those fires? Were they structure fires or just grass fires or?
Yeah, so the majority of them were grass fires. I think there was one that caught a little bit of a fence at a residence, but majority of them were brush fires, grass fires, no structures.
And then, well, we did have an injury this year. I believe that was on the 3rd of July, I think. But anyways, I mean, I'm assuming that was related to illegal fireworks versus the
Yes,
same?
correct. Yeah, it was illegal fireworks that, obviously they have a potential for danger, and that's why they're illegal if you're not handling them correctly. But yes, unfortunately, it was from an illegal firework.
Okay. Council, any other questions? And, this year was a little bit different. It kind of seemed like it was going to be quiet, but then everything just went crazy. I did receive, a few phone calls, but not as many as before. I'm hoping that what that means that they're actually calling you guys directly. That is always my encouragement. When they call me or reach out, I always try to still address their concerns, but at the same time, trying to encourage them to call you guys so that when those calls come in, they get logged on, and then you guys are more aware of where those situations are coming from, and that gives you guys a better, I guess, additional information to, for planning purposes.
Yeah, and that's where I was talking about doing the hot spots, as you can say. That's where we get that information from the citizens calling in. Like I said, there was about 39 extra calls this year than last year, so the public was calling us more probably than normal. And as far as it being a little quieter, it was a little calmer before the storm. So I think normally before July 3rd, we probably have 15 to 20 calls. I think this year we had 7 or 8. So we even thought, it's going to be a lot quieter. But then when the 4th came, it kicked off. But it was quieter before this year.
Yeah. Okay. So, just basically my point is just to continue encouraging people to continue calling, because it will be more of a benefit, for planning purposes, or at least kind of finding out where you guys need to be.
Yes.
Canvassing or driving around more and stuff like that.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Wallace, any questions, comments?
No, I just wanted to thank the chief.
All right. Well, thank you. And good job again.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Let's see, city manager announcements and reports?
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. City council members announcements and reports, Mr. Wallace?
None at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Soto, any announcements and reports?
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
None tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And guess what? Nothing for me to report this time. So, little break. Next, we have, so in the agenda, we have receive and file, but what I would like to ask council to allow me to move that item number 1, and bring together item number 20 together, but after the consent agenda, if that's okay with you guys. So I'm just moving it a little bit after consent agenda, but also bringing item number 20, because to me, they seem relevant and they're connected, so I'm just thinking if that's okay. All right, so next we have consent agenda. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine and non-controversial and will be enacted by one vote unless separate action is requested by a member of the public, city manager, or city council member. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the public, city council, or city manager request that specific items be removed. Public comment on consent agenda items should be limited to 3 minutes per person, regardless of the number of items contained within the consent agenda. So at this time, I will entertain any citizen comments in regards to the consent agenda items. Anyone on the phone? Hearing none, any citizen comments in the chamber in regards to consent agenda? Seeing none, bringing it back to the dais at 7:33. Council?
I'd like to speak on some of the items in the consent agenda, specifically the meeting minutes.
So that will be items 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Not everyone I'm going to comment on, I'm just saying
In general?
in general.
Okay.
Some I will comment on specifically.
Anything else? All right,
And
so,
then,
go ahead.
I had a question on item 12.
Do you want just a question, or you want to pull it
I
separate?
just have a question, so let me ask that.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me find it first. Well, off the top of my head, my items aren't numbered, but what I have is that the money's there. There was like over $117,000 difference between what would have been granted and what was proposed. I wanted to know where those funds would come from, because I know that it was recommended or that it was required to come up with a special tax or another tax item for that money. And then the other question was, so my question was where to get the remaining funds, which I just asked. And then the other question was, will this still occur if it's not approved by MCAG? I know that that's,
Good evening, Council. Anthony Chavarria, Public Works. So to the second question, and no, it will not be approved unless it's approved by council tonight by resolution. The city will not receive the funds of $202,349.
my question, let me get that clear. My question is, should this be approved tonight, but MCAG not approve it, will we still move forward on the rehabilitation project? Is it a project that has been lined up for the city of Livingston to go through with? Because it's a small section.
Yes, that is a project that we would still move forward with because it has already been programmed for this fiscal year.
And so where is that $100,000 coming from if we don't get that?
That was budgeted between Measure V and RMRA, the RMRA fund. But with this RSTP funds, we would utilize these funds in place of the Measure V because the Measure V is more flexible. We could use those funds on our local roads. And these funds, the RSTP P funds are a little more strict. We can't use them on local roads.
And the second part of my question, the second question? But we would still use, if not the grant, moving forward with it, we'd use Measure V and our
Yes, we
MRA
would still move forward
for the 319,312.
for whatever that project cost, yes.
That's what it costs. It's projected cost. Thank you so much. In regards to the meeting minutes, so this is the second time this year, maybe not even this year, that we get to approve minutes in bulk. And if you go back and look at the dates there, they go back as far as 2022. So I know I've said this many times before, that there was a grand jury investigation that stated that the city of Livingston was required to produce city minutes, required to come up with these minutes per meeting. We are not doing that. Why? Well, let the record reflect that every time that the subject of city clerk has come up, it's been said that this council does not give direction to other elected. Therefore, we went through this whole process of someone resigning, someone getting appointed, and up until this point. So since December, there are items on the agenda for April 4th, I believe, the council direction and future agenda items. Then some of those items were brought up by me to come forward. There are some other council direction and future items. And again, I know that it depends on who's sitting, mayor and possibly pro tem, that gather and put together the agenda items. I know that we were supposed to have a process of how the agenda items are supposed to move forward, getting those a week prior. That's still not happening, and I don't understand why, because then it gives this council and future councils a heads up and has a little bit more conversation and the ability to be confident that their items for discussion will be on an agenda. But this has been since 2023, so there's items there that were supposed to come forward but never did. So when there's future items, I'd like to bring those back up, the ones that weren't ever addressed. Since this is on meeting minutes for April 18th, there was a King matter, and we haven't heard anything in related to that. So I'd like to see that as well. Also, April 18th, 2023, I won't ever forget that one night because it did have the always towing. We never got those policies brought forward. That, again, was another time where council sat as the county supervisor, made some allegations towards me as a sitting councilwoman, and nobody said anything or tried to stop him. Again, that's on him. But there are some items there that need to move forward as well. But my point is, we have not approved minutes in a very long time. Why is that? Why is that happening when, in fact, 2008 grand jury investigation said City of Livingston is required to produce minutes? And we have an elected city clerk who essentially delegated some of those duties to a deputy city clerk. Why does this continue to happen? That is a question.
Councilwoman, so are you addressing that to anybody in particular to answer, or?
It would be appropriate if the mayor addressed that, because he's the one that gathers information to put the agenda together, as well as Mayor Pro Tem.
I would suggest, if you're referring to how to get things on the agenda, I would suggest you reach out to legal, because we have discussed this many times. The process to get anything on the agenda is you either get a second from another member in the council, and then it will be on the agenda, or items that are recommended by the city manager. But if you have specific items, you need a second to be able to get it on the agenda. But if you need further assistance, I would suggest you contact legal for further advice.
That wasn't my question, but thank you for offering that. My question was, why do we continue not to provide the city of Livingston, the city residents, without prompt minutes? That is my question.
If you're asking me that question, that is a question I cannot answer, because I'm not the one that does the minutes. So you should be asking somebody else other than the mayor. The mayor is not responsible to get the minutes done.
Considering that it was the majority of this council that appointed someone to do the minutes, and we are required to do them, why is it still not an issue? Is there something that we're trying to hide and push back all these minutes and not get them done appropriately on a timely manner? Where you think that residents are going to forget what happens? They're not watching right now. There's no record of it for the past 2 years.
Are you making accusations that we're trying to hide anything? I mean, we have the videos. The videos
We don't own YouTube.
Excuse me. You're asking me a question. I'm trying to answer your question. So I would suggest in a respectful manner to hold on until I finish answering your question. So the mayor is not responsible for getting minutes done. We do have staff, and as you already know, and we have discussed this plenty of times, and you're just trying to make this something that is not. We do not have the staff to do these minutes on a timely manner. We have tried. We had someone already working part-time. We no longer have that person doing part-time job. So we're in the process, or the city manager, the city is in the process of trying to hire somebody that is going to take on those responsibilities. You already know that. You're just trying to make this something bigger than what it is. It is no one's fault that we don't have someone in staff to do the minutes. It takes time. And we cannot rely, this is not something, we already discussed this. This is not something that we're going to throw back on one person. They already have too much work to do. So you already know, and we all know, that we're in the process of trying to hire someone to be able to catch up with those minutes. All of the videos are live recorded. All of those videos are on YouTube. You suggesting that we're trying to hide anything, that is irresponsible. Unless you have proof, then you should, proceed in any manner you want, but not making assumptions or making allegations that anybody is trying to hide anything. We're one of the few agencies that still does have, like some other agencies, that we have live recordings. All of the videos are on YouTube. You know, what is it that you want to hear? We don't have the staff. That's it. That is the answer. Nobody's trying to hide anything.
My point again, these are required. We need to be held accountable to our residents. We do not own the rights to YouTube. If at any time those recordings are lost, they're done. We have no record of anything that has occurred in the city of Livingston. That is my point. And should I want to say that if we're trying to hide anything, I don't know. I'm not. So respectfully, thank you for answering my question.
Mr. Mayor, where, for the city manager, where do we stand on hiring somebody for this extra position or to helping the deputy city clerk right now? Where do we stand on that?
I believe the position is currently being recruited. I believe there are interviews that may be scheduled in the near term, but Monica would have more information on the timeline on that side.
I believe next week they were going to look into doing testing on the applicants.
Thank you. So if there are no more questions are there any more questions on the consent agenda items? Seeing none, is there any motions on the consent agenda?
I have one, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
On number 14, number 14, authorizing an additional expense for Ricky Ricardo Productions. They've been dealing with the city for years. How come they overlook something and why should we be on the hook for it? It's not a lot of money, but I'm just curious how it didn't get in this year when it's been done, you know, all the years we've had dealings with them. It's a small amount, but I just want to know why they picked up on it after the event.
What they said was they were never previously required to have insurance, and that's why they didn't include it in their package. I know that Recreation does not typically use this group on their events, and so they've used someone else.
Thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Wallace. Again, those are some of the dealings that have happened in the past where some groups of people will be allowed to do things. Again, having the bullfights is a safety concern, and without that insurance, people weren't protecting the city of Livingston. So it's a good point that you bring up. The fact that it was done in the past for the events and being overlooked that way, it's really hard to, I'm just glad we're moving forward and putting those policies in place.
Thank you.
Is there any motions on the consent agenda items?
If there's no further discussion, Mr. Mayor, I make the motion to approve.
Thank you. So I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second? I'll go ahead and second. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Wallace.
Yes.
Councilmember Soto.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samar.
Yes.
Mayor Moran.
Yes.
Motion passes by a vote of 4-0.
Thank you. So next we have receive and file item, which was number 1, Gilton's residential rate breakdown. And can you provide additional information in regards to what we're supposed to do here? Because there's no guidance or direction. It's just receive and just make it official that we've received it and filed it?
Correct. It's just for council to make note on the public record that it's received it, and now it can be dispersed to city staff and council for their review.
Perfect. Thank you. Is there something that we go out for public comment or normally, or?
It's generally not required, but I think in an abundance of caution, it'd be a good idea to open it to public comment.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and do that at this time. I will go out for public comment in regards to this item, Gilton's residential rate breakdown. Is there anyone on the phone for this specific item? Hearing none, coming back to the chamber. Anyone in the chamber? Seeing none, bringing it back to the dais at 7:54. So it has been received and filed. Okay. Council, any questions on regards to this item? Seeing none, moving forward. So the next item that I was asking to move close to this item was item number 20. So in the discussion and potential action items, item number 20, well, should we do public hearings first? Roy?
No, I mean, we can consider this item and then do the
Public hearing?
number 15 after,
Okay.
since the council already approved the move.
Perfect. Just want to double check. So item number 20, discussion and direction regarding notices of the proposed increased solid waste fees and rates for a majority protest process in accordance with Proposition 218.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item I asked to, in conjunction with Mr. Chavarria, we wanted to bring this item back. As you recall, previously, the majority of the council gave direction to prepare a Prop 218 style a rate setting for the proposed administrative fee component of the solid waste services. At this time, though those fees are they're being paid out of the general fund. They're not being added to the current solid waste rates. And so at the prior meeting, the council directed myself and staff to wait on this item until the Jilton rate breakdown was presented to the city council. And so since it was presented to the council tonight and received, we thought it was a good idea to bring this item back. And in an effort to save city resources, we thought, and we're asking for direction from council to combine the two items for a possible Prop 218 rate setting, which would be consideration of the administrative fee component of the solid waste fee and the rate component prepared by Jilton for the solid waste collection services. We feel in light of the council now receiving the rates, the rate breakdown from Jilton, that it would be appropriate to conduct that rate setting hearing. And so I'm asking for direction from council on whether or not to bring those items back, meaning to commence that process, the 45-day notice, and also basically the first step would be, as kind of mentioned in the staff report, bringing an item to council to approve kind of guidelines for the process. The guidelines are outlined in the staff report. They're common for this procedure. And it just kind of lets the public know how the process is going to go. So it provides added transparency to the public on how the items will be considered and how the things will move forward. Once that's approved, then we would do the 45-day notice and then set a rate setting hearing so that any protests can be submitted to the city during that time period. And then at the rate setting hearing, then the council would consider whether or not there was a majority protest to the administrative fee and to the solid waste collection fee.
All right, thank you. Council, questions?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. This is kind of ties together. There's a discussion that we have. Item number 16 on the water quality. Obviously, the way I understand it, with all the challenges we have regarding water, that we need to be discussing that as well. I don't need to really look at the report to know that we do have challenges that are affecting all three enterprise funds: water, wastewater, and solid waste. What I would like to do, and I don't know if this is appropriate time, but we do need to do a proper rate study on all three enterprises properly through an independent consultant. I'd like to ask that we move forward, put an RFP, bring that back, so all of them can be done at the same time. Instead of piecemealing it, I think time has come that we look at all three items. Thank you.
I got two, you said three items?
Yeah, obviously, we need to look at whether the city is collecting enough for solid waste. And also, we do have challenges, and there's no secret to it, on our water. We have lots of capital improvements we need to do. And then also, if I remember correctly, and Public Works can correct me, but we are also running up against maximum discharges for our wastewater as well. So I think time has come, even though it hasn't been 4 years or whatever the time. Nobody says we have to wait any particular time. I'd like to bring this back and to put out an RFP to where we can do proper rate studies for all three funds, and then do the 218 for all three items at the same time. I think that's much cleaner. It gives the citizens one good look at what the potential is going to be, instead of trying to piecemeal everything here, and there, So that's what I would propose.
I'm not sure who can answer this question, but was the last rate study, was that 3 years ago? Does anybody know? I think I remember, I think that was when when that council used $2 million of ARPA funds.
How much?
$2 million, I think it was.
I don't think the rate study cost $2 million.
No. When the council made a decision to use some of the ARPA funds towards reducing the cost of, so it's been almost 2 years, so it's probably about 3 years ago.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, I know we just accepted the report on item 1, the information, and I was slightly confused, and maybe I misunderstood, but, and again, I will plead that I didn't quite clear it, but I thought we used ARPA funds for solid waste as well, but it says that ARPA funds were deemed ineligible, so I'm kind of confused on what was done where. Was I told that we used ARPA funds for solid waste, and now we're saying that's ineligible? That it was deemed ineligible? So, see, this is why I'm kind of confused on this.
So part of when this issue came up in May was there was a discussion about whether ARPA was applied to the solid waste rates. That's why we brought this back, so that we could provide the information related to, these are the facts of what happened. So the receive and file report that you have is what was used for ARPA. I believe it was used for water rates. And so to your point, Mayor Pro Tem, previously you bundled all of your services when you did your rate study: solid waste, water, and wastewater. So I can see how that thought was looped into that, because you did them all at the same time.
Yeah, and I swear that's why I was kind of confused, and I was trying to go through my previous questions and records, and I even tried to look at that, and maybe my memory is not good, but I could have swore that I thought that we used, the information was given that we did use ARPA for solid waste. So am I incorrect on this, or can somebody tell me if we did or not? Do we need to?
It doesn't appear that the city did. Again, part of why we wanted to have a written document was to clearly articulate that, because I don't know that anybody had the facts at that night.
Yeah, and that's the question, is because we didn't have, like you said, and I'm not saying that anybody please don't think like that for a second, but I thought that one of the reasons that these rates are going up a certain percentage and higher is because the ARPA was used to hold the solid waste lower than what we should have been charging. So that's why I was quite confused, and I'm still kind of confused. Mr. Mayor, the minimum I would like to ask, and maybe we can continue to the next, I would like to sit down with the city manager and with the staff to get the proper information. I don't think we'd be able to do it here.
So what are you requesting in regards to the item at this point?
Well, at least table it to the next meeting, because I don't want to cause any more confusion out there, or especially for myself. I would prefer to sit down with staff and find out exactly was the information that I had, or did I misunderstand it? I just want to make sure that I understood what was being proposed and what's being said at this time. What I was thinking one way now is saying something differently.
Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem, Anthony prepared the receive and file. If it's of value for Anthony to go through that receive and file report publicly for residents, we're happy to do that as well.
Yeah, but I would like to sit with staff, with you, of course, at the table there, and wherever, just so I can have some more detailed questions, and I don't want to take up everybody else's time, and I think I would just prefer that we get some straight answers, and that way I'm not confused, it's more or less,
I'm okay either way.
Yeah, I would humbly request that we at least table it to the next meeting, please.
So at this time, I think it would be wise if anybody else has any questions.
Oh, yes, of course.
To
Yes.
be able to provide those questions so that those questions are answered if they're not answered tonight. So is there any other questions before I go out for public comment? So I will go out for public comment in regards to this item. At this time, is there anyone on the phone? Hearing none, coming back into the chamber. Any questions in regards to item number 20? Seeing none, bringing it back to the dais at 8:07. Okay. Any other questions before we make a motion?
In the meantime, what is happening to that administrative fee? Is it just compiling?
The city is currently using its fund balance to cover the costs of the administrative cost. It's using its reserves.
So either way we incur that cost, it's being paid, and then how was it done before that the people didn't know that they were already paying those costs?
Previously, the city lumped in the administrative fee into the refuse rate. And so for the general public, they didn't necessarily know how much was the Jilton rate and how much was the admin fee. When the city established and entered into a franchise agreement with Jilton, in a desire to be transparent, the city separated those out to clearly illustrate the cost of Jilton providing the service and then the administrative fee. And that's where the council approved the franchise agreement, but didn't approve the administrative fee. And so as a result, the city is not charging an administrative fee. Those costs and those expenses are still being borne by the city that's using its savings account to cover those costs.
So to be clear, the residents of the city of Livingston have been paying those administrative costs. It wasn't transparent enough for them to understand that they were lumped together into one payment on their city utility bill.
Correct. The ratepayer only saw the flat rate, but they didn't see what was made up of that component charge.
And so this process here is going to allow us as a city to make the residents aware that you've been paying this, but here's the exact dollar amount that that's going to be identified, but you've been paying it all along. You just didn't know.
So what we're proposing, I would say yes and no. So in this sense, because we actually staff went through and assessed how much it would cost to provide the administrative services that solid waste currently incurs, and created a new administrative fee, which is based on a reasonably proportionate estimate of the actual cost to the city for that service. So what we are proposing to do is notify the solid waste customers, and the notice would go both to the solid waste customers and to the actual property owners of what it costs for that administrative fee. And then they would have the ability to file a protest to that fee. If the city does not receive a majority protest, meaning more than 50% of the property owners objecting to the fee, then the fee would be approved. And then it would then be added to the solid waste bill. That is what this process would entail.
So being a resident, receiving that kind of a notice, I would say, what? I don't want to pay in addition to this, not knowing already that it had already occurred all these years. So this is going to be something new that our public is not aware that they were already paying it. It's just separated out, it's more transparent. Because if I see that as a resident, nobody wants to pay extra. But in the long run, it's coming out of our reserves as we speak. So we're paying it anyways. It's a service that we have been using and have been paying in the past. This does not create anything new. We're not saving our residents any money, because one way or the other, it's going to get paid, and we've been paying it all along. This is just an opportunity for us, as it always should be, to be as transparent as possible.
And also, as part of the process that I mentioned earlier about bringing the guidelines back on how the process would go forward, we can also discuss the type of information that we would include in the notice that goes out to the ratepayer and to the property owners, letting them know, it could be an informational item like, here's how it used to be done, and explaining the process to them of how the new rate was created. So there is an opportunity to present the public with more clear information on how this administrative fee was created, and the fact that it is something that was previously in existence, but just not as clear that the public was paying it.
Thank you for that clarification. I do believe that that's what needs to be said, that it's been going on in the past. You have been paying it. It's nothing new, because what came to that meeting back in May, I believe, was almost a shock and panic when people received their bill and there was 2 different costs associated. Now, much of this discussion probably wouldn't be talking about it today had that letter been out in the first place saying, hey, you've been paying this all along, but we've separated out those costs to be more transparent with our residents, to the ratepayers.
And just to add clarity, the administrative fee has not yet been charged with the new rates. Currently, we've held it off because it has not been approved.
With or without approval, we're still paying it.
Council, any other questions? All right, so Roy, at this time, so just, I guess, do you have direction, enough direction? Discussion and direction regarding the notices? Or not yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
I
You
was
wanna-
requested to be tabled to the next meeting.
Okay. So there's a request by Mayor Pro Tem to be tabled, for this item to be tabled until next meeting for further clarification and additional information. I guess we have no option. So, you know.
I humbly
that's-
request. just-
Okay, yeah, that's fine, you know. So, all right, so you have, that's fine. Next,
Thank you.
all right,
And Chris, I will contact you to set up an appointment to meet with staff, okay?
I was just sending the email to Monica to reach out to you,
Yeah.
but that's fine.
All right, thank you.
all right. Thank you. So next, we're going back to public hearings. Consideration of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Livingston repealing and replacing Chapter 2-4 of Title 3 of the Livingston Municipal Code pertaining to itinerant vendor. Staff recommendations: waive the first reading of the ordinance by title only, open the public hearing, close the public hearing, and approve the ordinance as presented. Yes, go ahead.
Christopher, you want me to take the? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This item was part of a prior direction to council to bring this in for edits, and the reason being is after going through the city's itinerant vendor provisions, there were some concerns that it wasn't in compliance with the current state legal requirements. And there was also some issues regarding the ability for food trucks and other vendors of that nature to operate within the city. After meeting with staff and looking at the code section, I prepared the following ordinance, which I believe brings the city into compliance with current legal requirements. It sets a process that complies with the law as currently mandated by the state for permitting itinerant vendors. It also allows for, as established within the state guidelines, provisions for mobile vendors, including mobile food trucks. So this ordinance doesn't affect the city's current separate provisions which govern stationary food trucks. So for example, a food truck that it has not so much a brick and mortar, but is in a stationary location, meaning it doesn't move from that location for more than 24 hours. The provisions of this code doesn't apply to that particular mobile food vendor. It would be based on the city's current code, which limits those what I would call semi-immobile food vendors to 2 permits within the city. This deals strictly with vendors that are on a mobile basis, meaning they're not limited to one particular location, and they could basically utilize the public rights of way in the city to conduct their business, as long as they do so in a way that does not interfere with the public's enjoyment of streets and sidewalks, does not interfere with the quiet enjoyment of one's residence. And with that, I'll happily answer any questions the council or public may have.
Mayor, if I could add a couple items too. I know that we've got one local business owner that's opened up recently that brought this up to our attention as well. You'll also recall that the night that this was initially brought up, I think there was one business owner that identified this as well. So we really see this as an opportunity for economic development opportunities in the community. We've had a chance, I know the staff has gone a couple times to visit the new coffee shop just down the street. It's a great location. It looks like a perfect opportunity to be able to implement this new ordinance and really attract new vendors and different types of amenities to the community. So I want to thank Roy for developing this, and we really see it as an opportunity to provide additional attractions and really additional options to members of the Livingston community. So we really see this as a win-win and a positive for the community, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Also, Roy, I was looking through the language in this, and I know that in our current ordinance, there is a limit of one mobile business per 5,000, and so that was also part of the conversation, I believe, one of the previous times when people came up. That has never been updated, or and then also council had not had an opportunity to come to talk about that and update it to, now I guess we have 15,000 residents, and then would that allow it? Was there any language there to pertain to that as well?
So in looking at the language of the code, the way it's written with relation to the current approved mobile food trucks, it really talks about stationary food trucks versus truly mobile food trucks. And so what we did, because you kind of have a blending of worlds here, so in order to deal with those vendors who are truly mobile, we crafted language in there that basically said, as long as you don't reside in the same location for more than 24 hours, then you're governed under the itinerant vendor provisions. If you utilize the same location for more than 24 hours or a certain number of consecutive days, then it would be triggered under that additional section, which limits the number of allowable what I'll call like semi-mobile food trucks to 2 permits, or one per 5,000 residents. So this doesn't alter that language. The council can still alter that language if it would like to allow more stationary food trucks, meaning food trucks that are going to operate at a fixed location. But right now, this particular ordinance is more focused on actual mobile vendors. So, like the pop-up vendors that can do a pop-up at the coffee shop. Someone that does pastries or cupcakes could do that and be in compliance with our code. Right now, they wouldn't be.
Okay, got it. So then that would be a separate item that we need to bring back. Okay, I just wanted it that clear. Perfect, thank you. Council, any other questions?
You read my mind on the extra trucks. I know we talked about it, it was not in there, so thank you for asking that question.
All right. Any other questions, motions? Well, let's see. So it's just a public hearing.
Yeah, at this time, Mayor, I would ask that you waive the first reading of the ordinance by title only and open the public hearing.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing at 8:22. Is there any comments in regards to this item? Anyone on the phone? Hearing none, coming back to the chamber. If you can please state your name for the record.
Yeah, hello, my name's Ariel Hernandez. I am one of the owners at Sueño Coffee Co. that just opened 3 weeks ago. So yeah, I originally called the city about this idea. Before we opened, we had 500 followers on Instagram, right? So Instagram's a big social media platform nowadays. Within the last 3 weeks, we've gone up to 1,400 followers, right? So we have followers from Atwater, Merced, Turlock, like around the area, who have came to the shop within just the last 3 weeks, right? So I don't have a kitchen in my place. And then one of the ideas that I had was, why not do collaborations with other vendors that have businesses, right? Barbecue trucks, hot dog trucks, pizza, things that are maybe even a little different than tacos, to provide that to the community, right? I know the city already did a great job with like doing the cottage license, where I know a lot of like small businesses are now doing that, right? With the economy, people have to work, sometimes even double, 2 jobs, start a side gig. So that's kind of like my effort of like collaborating with like other vendors or other businesses in the area to provide multiple things at one location. It's an idea that happens in Southern California and the Bay Area, so it's not new. It's just done in bigger cities. So I kind of want to bring that to Livingston to provide something different, something fresh, something new, right? If you've gone to the shop, our menu is a little different. We do have pastries from a commissary or a smaller business that operates out of Modesto. They're called Sweet Flakes, great products. Those things sell out every day by like 10 in the morning. So if you don't come early, they're gone. And people enjoy them, right? And they're ran by a couple of two. So the wife works, the husband makes pastry. So again, everyone's kind of collaborating, trying to just make ends meet. So why not do something in the city that, can rejuvenate, bring some like new light to the city and attraction. This weekend alone, like I like to ask people, hey, where are you visiting from? We have a lot of people that are going to Yosemite, going to Kings Canyon. They're driving by the 99, see the coffee shop, stop by Livingston, right? So we have other things available to them. Maybe, it brings some revenue to the city, brings more people into the city. Been having a lot of people come from Atwater because they don't have a coffee shop in Atwater. So they like to come here. They like to work on whatever it is they're doing at the shop. So yeah, from that, from my notes. So like I said, we opened on July 20th and been seeing like some pretty phenomenal growth. I wasn't expecting that, to be honest. I thought it was gonna be super slow and steady for a while because it is a new concept, but it's actually proven that a lot of people do like that. 35% of our followers are from Livingston, 10% are from Atwater, 9.5% from Turlock, 9.1% from Merced. I also did do like a quick poll on Sunday to see if people would like this idea. We had 100 people reply saying that they would like to see something like that in the city. And then people started throwing a bunch of ideas out there, right? They started throwing like birria tacos, pizza, barbecue, just to name a few. I know if you go to like the Tarmac in Atwater, right, they do that. They have a lot of food trucks there, which, provides people space to go hang out. So don't want to do anything super crazy, right, due to the location, but at least try to have like one different food truck come from time to time, try to rotate. Obviously, I would first have to convince them to come, right? Because, some of these people are already doing their own thing, but I'm definitely willing to do it. So yeah, I would want to do something like that. So I definitely wanted to like +1 to the change, and yeah, just want to advocate for it.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. You forgot your phone, I think. No? Okay, perfect. Is there any other comments in the chamber? All right, so I'm closing the public hearing at this time, 8:26. So the recommendation is to waive the first reading of the ordinance by title only, open it to the public hearing, and then close the public hearing, and then approve the ordinance as presented. Council, any motions, comments, suggestions?
I can really appreciate your comment. Thank you for coming up. This is a great idea. Fabulous. So I'm just going to piggyback a little bit on what you said. This will revitalize many of the smaller businesses that we have within Livingston, plus create the diversity of vending that comes to the city of Livingston. And just making Livingston aware of, we don't know what we want until it's actually presented, or what we can have. So thank you for advocating for the small businesses and bringing something within our downtown that we really need some revitalization down throughout Livingston, outside of just the Hammett and Winton Parkway. Okay, so supporting our small businesses, I'm glad that that number was read off, 35%. We could really use more people supporting all the businesses here in Livingston. And you're new, many of the businesses that we get new, but you're a smaller shop and you're providing something that's different. So my hope is that your business thrives and continues, that the residents of Livingston keep supporting you and supporting other businesses, as well as the idea of bringing other, collaboration, as long as it stays true to the, H part falls in section 2-4115. That those all stay, all these regulations here stay in compliance with what we're doing so that we keep it fair amongst the vendors that are coming in. Livingston can use a bigger palette of foods or crafts or any vendors. So I am one to help support those small businesses. Other businesses wanting to come in as long as they follow these guidelines, get their permits, their health permits, and see what Livingston is missing out on. We're missing out on a lot. And so to that point about the trucks, I know the old code specifically just limited to taco trucks, which has been wrong, so Livingston deserves more variety, more diversity, based on not just food, but other items that people want to bring into Livingston to help the economy and help their businesses, the little mom and pop shops. So thank you very much. I move to waive the first reading and all this right here.
So that was a motion, right, to approve? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Is there a
I'll
second?
second it.
First and a second, roll call, please.
Roll call, Councilmember Wallace.
Yes.
Councilmember Soto.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra.
Yes.
Mayor Moran.
Yes,
Motion approved by a vote of 4-0.
thank you.
Was there was it's coming, never mind.
Oh, what?
The
Oh,
item where the permits, where we were supposed to, what was it, a separate, sorry.
oh, you're referring to the permit fee?
Yes.
Well, that item will have to come back. And
We did want some direction on that.
it's not agendized.
Okay.
All right.
So that item we'll bring back for direction from council on how to establish the permit fee for the itinerant vendors. And then also, we'll be bringing back, because we're going to be updating to the cottage food component of the municipal code to bring it into compliance with state law.
Yeah, so as Roy mentioned, it wasn't, I think what he's referring to is it's not specifically stated in item 15 to provide direction on that. So we'll need to create an agenda item to bring that same narrative back in an agenda item.
Thank you.
Next, we have item number 16, discussion on water quality related to
Ready? Good evening, Mayor, council members, and public. Noe Martinez from the Office of the City Engineer, as well as we have Nick Fontaine, who's between the two of us, will go over this presentation. So tonight, just to give a quick synopsis, we're here to do an overview of the arsenic concentrations for the city's water system, and specifically for the arsenic testing results for the new well that we're working on, well 8A. As you may recall, back on June 4th, council meeting, we provided a completion status on that project, and one of the items that we mentioned was that we were conducting additional testing for well 8 for arsenic, and we have since completed that testing. We have tabulated the results on this presentation, and we'll go over that in more detail. Now, just to mention that we did collaborate with the Public Works Director and interim city manager on this presentation. And also to mention that we do have Mario, the city engineer, should be on the phone available for any questions. And with that, I'll go ahead and hand over the microphone to Nick, who will go over the presentation.
All right, good evening, everybody. As Noe mentioned, we're going to go over some of the arsenic results that we've got for testing so far, but we'll step back a little bit and look at some historical data for the city as well in terms of arsenic. So with this presentation, we'll, as I mentioned, go over some of the existing well sites, treatment facilities, and also look at considerations that are looked at when selecting new well sites. And then we'll go over the information that we've gathered for well 8A, which is currently in construction, and talk about potential funding options for possibly treating for arsenic at well 8A. So maybe you can point, Noe. So here's an overall exhibit of the city's wells. It's might be a little hard to see, but on basically the divider through the city is Highway 99, and on the south side of 99, the city currently has 3 active wells. It's wells 12, 13, and 17, and 15 is also on the south side there, but it's currently on standby status. As far as existing treatment facilities, wells 17 and 13 currently treat for arsenic removal. And then there's a plan for a future centralized TCP treatment plant at Archelian Park that will treat wells 12, 13, and 17. And then on the north side of 99, the city currently maintains wells 8, 9, 11, 14, and 16. Well 8A is currently in construction at the same site as well 8, and then also shown as a future location for wells 18 and 19. And as far as treatment for this side of the city, well 16 currently has a treatment plant for arsenic, and then it has a centralized plant for TCP removal that does wells 14 and 16. With the well 8 site, it's planned to be the existing JC facilities there will be expanded, and we'll be able to accommodate TCP removals for well 18 and 9 as well. And then well 19 will have its standalone TCP treatment facility.
Also to add, the city does currently have an existing 1 million gallon tank right here at this location. Part of the project that we're currently working on as far as the centralized TCP plant, another tank would go at the well 8 site, 1.5 million gallon tank, and another tank would go at the Arachelian site, 1 million gallons.
Okay, so here's the arsenic concentration in the existing city wells. The table here lists all 8 of the active wells, as well as the standby well, well 15, just as a reference in here. In the third column, the MCL for arsenic is noted at 10, and then the historical arsenic concentration in each of the wells is listed in column number 2. And this data is based on about the last 12 years or so from California Drinking Water Watch, which is where all the reporting is completed and summarized on. As you can see from this, 5 of those wells have exceeded the MCL for arsenic and have historically been over that range. And then those are the items highlighted in red there. Those are the wells that have exceeded the MCLs. And then as mentioned, wells 13, 16, and 17 all have arsenic treatment right now. And wells 8, 9, 11, 14, historically those haven't exceeded the MCL, but they've approached it. You know, they kind of float around the halfway mark, but have remained under the MCL.
And also just to highlight that pretty much all of the city wells right now are subject to arsenic contamination.
Okay, so here's a graphical representation of the results discussed on the previous slide, showing the arsenic concentration in the existing wells over time. The x-axis is for time that the samples were collected, and the y-axis is the arsenic concentration. I'm not sure if you can see it there, but that bottom grid is where the concentration is at 10. Right through there is at 10 MC, concentration of 10. So as you can see, well 16, which is that green line, kind of the dark green line, that's the well that produces the highest levels of arsenic concentration in it. But even looking at the other wells, you can see which ones have exceeded the MCL over the years, and then even the ones that haven't still float pretty close to that borderline levels for that. So a couple of considerations when selecting new well sites. The first one typically looked at is the availability of city-owned land or the possibility of the city to acquire the land to construct a well on. Another option that is looked at is replacing existing city wells, either to replace the ones that are aging and surpass their useful life and increase reliability on them. Also look at the proximity to existing treatment facilities or the possibility of having to construct new treatment facilities. As we looked on on the slides before, arsenic is in a lot of the city's groundwater, and then TCP is also something obviously considered with every well as well. And then location. Go ahead, Noe.
Yeah, so for item 4, what we mean is that basically if the city was to entertain a large housing project at this point, they would most likely be required to drill a new well. So wherever that project happens to be, that's where the new well would go. Typically, that's how it works. And then for item number 5, basically what we mean is that we want to locate the wells where the system is hydraulically balanced for both the water pressures and flows. So as you saw earlier on the slide, on the map, we have what we call the north side and the south side. So we want to make sure that those two sides are balanced.
I do have a question. Can you go back to, I think, a slide where the map is of the wells? Yeah, right there. So just for not only for my refreshing my mind, but also for other people to know, item well 11 and 19, those are not currently working right now, right? What is the status of 11 and 19?
We can provide a status, but I believe Anthony would probably speak better to this.
Yes, Mayor. Well 11 is in operation. Well 19 has not been built or drilled to date.
Okay. And then, so going back to the list of the 5 different items of the different ways, and then on the following, on the consideration when selecting new well sites, because item well 11 and 19, those are not currently in city property, right? Yeah.
Correct. The city right now is in the process of purchasing those.
Yeah. And so going back to the list of the 5 different items, item number 1, availability of city-owned land or possibility to acquire land. Is there a possibility, because right now in my mind, we're just looking at land that we own, but not necessarily if there was a better location for a well, and possibly looking into options of requesting to purchase that land to possibly look into a new well site, because some well sites are not necessarily good locations for water. Is that even, how do we go about looking at new well sites on land that we don't own? I mean, just first, I guess, I want to look at possibilities where we can have a good well, and then see if we can purchase that land. I don't know if that makes sense. So right now we're only looking at land that we own, right, for well sites. But
the whole list is being considered as far as new well sites, yes.
Public comment. Mr. Mayor.
okay, never mind. I see that, or possibility to acquire land. Got it.
Mr. Mayor, question?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, the city does own land, and you say the possibility of do we expect better results or different results from acquiring more land than to drill on city land? Would it be, I'm just kind of,
Well,
because one of the issues we're dealing with is obviously arsenic, How far does it spread from, I know it's hard to predict, but how far is it water's concentrated in the city we have arsenic, or if we were to go half a mile out of town, will we have the same result?
well, as far as drilling new wells, you would be restricted to the city boundaries, right? The farther you go with the well, the more expenses there is to construct and maintain. Now, as far as what we're looking at here at this point is how does the city move forward with constructing the next two wells, which is 18 and 19? And what was looked at it was basically a combination of some of those items. Specifically, number 2, we're looking at replacing wells 9 and 11. Like Mayor mentioned earlier, he was wondering if those wells even work at this point. So that's been one of the focuses. Replacing the oldest wells that may be going out or could go out soon.
Yeah, I understand that, and I was just, one of the things we're dealing with is arsenic, and I was just trying to understand the groundwater, is it certain areas more subject to arsenic? Because even though if we were to buy land outside of city limits, it may cost more, but if its water quality is different, there may be long-term savings, not have to put filtration, That's what I was trying to ask.
Yeah, and that would basically involve a more in-depth study where we look at other areas beyond the city limits.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to ask okay, thank you.
How does that work with our schools? Was there a recent well within our city limits?
Yeah, schools, some of the schools here do have their own wells, mainly for irrigation purposes. And I believe that's probably the one you're referring to, but I don't have much information on that one.
I was just wondering how that worked with the city-owned wells. We don't own wells, but that is within our city limits. On how they're monitored.
Yeah, they have their own set of rules for monitoring those wells. Even though they're in city limits, they're allowed to do them if the city permits them.
Since the mayor stepped out for a moment, Mr. Wallace, do you have any questions? Okay, then I will take it upon myself and Does the public have any comments at this time? Please come up.
Joanna Garcia Rose. I'm actually an Atwater resident, but I'm a licensed C57 well driller, so I have some questions. If you could go back to the arsenic squiggly lines. I'm not sure what, yeah, that one. I was just curious because you can see some of them are much higher than others, and I noticed on the map that they're kind of everywhere. So I haven't encountered where I've actually ever drilled and gotten arsenic. I've had nitrates that I've dealt with, and so I wasn't sure. Have you guys looked at the, depths and different where the water structures are to figure out if you can kind of seal some of that off, or are
Yeah,
some
we're,
of those?
we're gonna go over that in next slides.
Okay, and then because I know that one had like it looks kind of like an outlier when it was so high, like it kind of calmed down.
Yeah, that was probably the one that's just spiked straight up and down on that one.
Well, there would have been during the drought in 14. That was
Yeah,
pretty
and that's
bad.
for well 12, and who knows what that spike was. Other than that one, it's
Well, I know water tables can, when we have the droughts, because they drop your parts per million, because you have less water, obviously it goes up. So I was just kind of curious if you guys had looked at that, because I noticed the map had showed kind of
Are you
the
talking about
arsenic
with
in
each
multiple
well?
places,
Each one of the
so-
existing wells, have we looked at different?
Yeah, if you just compared to
Mayor,
see if there's like
I
a
open it
strata
up.
where it's at, or if any of that analysis has been done when they're drilling and deciding how deep to seal and all that stuff. That's, and then your question with the school, yeah, anyone that gets licensed, gets a permit to drill, the public wells get special regulations within the county, and that's monitored through the county environmental health and not reported through the city unless the city owns the well. But I didn't realize there was so much arsenic here. That's kind of scary a little bit. So thank you.
No problem. Mayor?
So I just want to, since comments were open, I just want to see if there was any additional comments in the chamber at this time.
I have a couple of questions, but also know that we're not done with the presentation. And so if I had more after, would I be able to come back? Or do we want to just do a separate public comment period once everything's done? I'm down to come back later if you guys want. I don't need to ask right now. It can take like 10, 15 minutes, whatever.
That's fine.
Yeah? Okay. All right, thanks.
Yeah, we're just getting started. Good?
Okay, so this kind of goes back to some of the questions that have been asked as well, as far as the sites that we're looking at, either city-owned properties or the possibility of buying properties. So with well 8, that was considered to be replaced because it's the city's oldest active well. And at that time, the city was already in the process of acquiring the property adjacent to the existing well site for the expanded TCP treatment facility and storage tank. And then replacing well 8 would be able to still utilize the existing JC facilities for TCP removal. Well 9 was considered at one point for this, but because the site is so small there, in order to construct the test well and drill a new well there, the existing well would have to be offline during the duration of that project, and the city didn't want to have to shut that down just with concerns of meeting demand and the possibility of another well site being down at the same time. Replacement of well 10, which is at our Killian Park, was considered, but the understanding on that one was that the previous well there was abandoned due to water quality issues. And then a couple other well sites that came up at later on were well 18 and well 19, which are not owned by the city and properties that the city is looking at acquiring. But at a minimum, those would require TCP treatment. And as I mentioned, well 18 is scheduled to be treated for TCP removal at the centralized plant at well 8, and then well 19 will have its own TCP plant. And then I also considered looking at the existing water storage tank site. But again, there's no treatment there on site, so either a well there would need to be piped to a treatment facility or have its own wellhead treatment there. So here's a graph showing the arsenic concentration that was obtained in the test well for well 8A, which is the blue line. So with the samples collected at the various depths, you can see the arsenic trend through it. And then the green line there is the test well results for well 19, which follow the similar trend for this. So the most latest arsenic concentration samples that were collected in June of 2024 were collected at intervals between 10 to 15 feet, and pretty much had a uniform concentration of about 17, and that was at each interval throughout the testing. Okay. So as far as the progressive arsenic concentration, starting back with June 2020 with the test well, the arsenic concentration seen in the test well was 5.3 within the design production zone. And then in 2023 in October, when the well was actually drilled and developed, a overall discharge was collected on that, and the arsenic concentration was 9.6. With seeing the increase on that led to supplemental testing that was conducted at various depths in February, where the arsenic was then coming in at 15. And then in June 2024, that's when the additional isolated depths samples were collected that were tabulated on the previous slide, which averaged right around 17 for the MCL. So a couple options that have been looked at or considered for mitigating the elevated levels of arsenic for well 8A. At one point, we had considered reducing the overall depth of the well or blanking off specific sections of it. But after performing the additional testing at the different depths, it's showing that arsenic is present throughout the well, so it's not really an option to just blank off or seal specific sections of that. The short-term solution on this would be to blend with existing well number 8. So with that option, it would allow the existing well 8 or the new well 8A to be online at a reduced flow, and then have well 8 remain online short-term with a reduced flow as well, and then the combined flow between the two wells would potentially, would have a arsenic concentration below the MCL for that. And then the long-term solution on this would be to construct actual arsenic treatment facilities. Estimated cost on this is, for budgetary purposes, $3 million to construct, which would include soft cost and any contingencies with that. From speaking with vendors and manufacturers for filter vessels, it's about a 9-month lead time for submittals and fabrication of equipment. If you factor in design and bidding and all the other components of construction, we estimated it would probably take about 2 years to have something like this actually online for arsenic treatment. We had looked at expanding the current DWSRF scope, which is specific for the TCP, the two centralized TCP plants. But after conversations with the Water Board, they've suggested that if the city does want to pursue funding from SRF, that it be submitted as a separate application to not create any delays or anything like that. And then also it's a separate funding pot that they have on their end. So with well 8, the arsenic treatment facilities could be sized to accommodate the future flow from well number 18. So it'd be filter vessels set up similar to what the city already has at wells 13 and 17, and then just increase the size on them to include the capacity for well 18 as well. And then another benefit from adding the arsenic filters would be that it also treats for iron and manganese, which is another constituents that's present in all of the city wells.
Quick question. So if we were to, just consider number 3 for being a long-term solution, the funding, we have to apply separately. Ideally, we want to apply separately for funding for this. And then because of the amount of time that it takes for things, for equipment to be built, or for the things that we would need to have the treatment facility, it will be a leadway of 9 months. Could the process be started, and then at the same time, how long does it normally take for funding to say that we would be able to secure funding?
Yeah, we actually have another slide for that at
Okay.
the end of this that
All
we
right.
can kind of look at that
Answer
a bit
that,
more.
right? Okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, a couple cost considerations or analysis to look at this. So well number 8A is the column on the left-hand side. That when the test well was completed for that back in 2020, it was about $50,000. And then to construct and develop well 8A, currently at about $4 million for that, and that's with the project that's in construction. And then if arsenic treatment is added, as I mentioned, it would be about $3 million as a budgetary estimate for that one. Also have annual O&M costs listed on this for arsenic filters as well as the TCP filters, and a 10-year capital cost estimated at $7.6 million for it. One of the questions that I've heard before was, what about just leaving that well existing, or well 8A, just abandoning it and going somewhere else to other site, or just for a consideration of it? If that was the case, to abandon well 8A, the city would be out about the $1 million that's already invested into the site. And then to conduct a new test well would probably be closer to $100,000. Costs have increased just since 2020, and then the cost that was for 8A was just a really low number on that one when that one was completed. And then the develop and constructed well at alternative site has an estimate at $5 million, and it's higher than the one for well 8 just because of the time of when that one would be anticipated to go into construction if it's later on down the road. And then also well 8A is able to utilize some of the existing infrastructure on site versus a new well at an empty lot would be basically starting from scratch with everything on that. And then to add TCP treatment, again, this depends on the site on where an alternative well would be constructed, but with the assumption that a specific wellhead treatment would be needed, have estimated $3.5 million for TCP treatment. And then this is with the assumption right now that arsenic treatment is not needed. But again, that's, this is just for conversation purposes for this slide, because as you've seen on some of the other slides, arsenic is present in all of the city wells. It just depends on the level of concentration that's going to be there once it's developed. And again, you have O&M costs for the TCP filters and estimated 10-year capital cost of $10.3 million. So this slide here is some funding options for well number 8A and the possibility of arsenic treatment. The three funding sources on the bottom are city funds right now. So the city has identified 3 sources: TCP fund, water enterprise fund, and water capital fund that could potentially be used for treating arsenic at well 8A. As you can see, there's about a total of 17 million, 17.5 million between the three funds. And if the city was to go this route, it does expedite when the arsenic treatment facilities could be online with any of those three sources. We estimated that it would be about 6 months or so to design a project. It depends also if a test well needs to be completed within that time frame. And then construction. So you're looking at about a total of 24 months to get that one, to get that completed, that route. And then on top there is the SRF loan, which is a possibility that the city could pursue. It's estimated that it would be a 75% grant and a 25% loan, just based on the current city's current medium household income and what the water board is providing for grants. And if we go in that route, we estimate that it would take at least another year or so, compared to the other funding sources.
So with that, basically that concludes our presentation. We'll be happy to address any other questions there may be.
So in regards to the funding, and then thinking, and then looking back at how much things have gone up in the last couple of years, looking at the option of the loan, considering that, it's probably a year longer that for the process to be completed, we still run the risk of prices and costs going up. And then from now until 2 or 3 years versus using some funds from one of our funds, would we run a risk of having to spend more money going through a loan process and then spending more money in the long run because of the wait time? And then still, that it doesn't guarantee that we're going to get it. So even if it takes 6 months to a year before we have a decision, that's a year we're waiting, just running the risk that we don't, and then prices go up, and then we end up spending more money. So just, council, any other questions, comments before I go out for public comment again? Good.
Yeah, I have a quick question on, and I may have wrote them down wrong, but on the Water Capital Fund, how much of that is in the American Rescue Fund? How much of that is a part of?
That's a question that could be answered by Anthony.
Councilmember, if you're referring to ARPA,
Yeah.
no, I don't believe that there's any of that funding that's available from ARPA in the Water Capital Fund.
And the figures you gave for the current fund balance, that's as of a couple weeks ago? That's up to date?
I believe so, yes. Anthony, is that correct? As of when are these numbers true as far as the balances?
We received these numbers from the finance department about 2 weeks ago.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Wallace?
None, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mayor, I wanted to add something, and you touched on it, and it's really the time frame that's there. One of the things that we wanted to do, and the basis of this presentation, was to put the council in the driver's seat of what they really want to do. So this illustrates there's some fund balance that's available that would allow us to potentially move faster and quicker on this item than going out to the SRF loan process. The state hasn't approved our initial application. They said that we haven't been, or that They didn't approve all of the components of our grant application, so you run that risk, which is, I know, what you reference as well. The other component that's critically important is that we've got a lot of development activity, or at least interest. And so putting out a potential SRF loan adds another year with no guarantee as to whether you're going to get the funding. With the amount of applicants that we have that are interested in developing in the community, our biggest pitfall and our biggest obstacle is not having adequate water capacity. So by potentially utilizing some of the funds the fund balances that we already have, it allows the city staff to move forward a little bit quicker on establishing what funding sources utilize to move forward on additional water capacity. I just wanted to put those items on the council's radar because those are relevant to the broader conversation related to this. I know that the engineering team and the public works team are working on another presentation that we'll be bringing back first meeting in September related to other projects as well, to really emphasize and put a light of fire to move some of these projects forward because of the development interest that we're having in the community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And exactly to that point, I think that considering the information and how one of the other loans has not been approved and we're still kind of moving on the process, right now, for me, the risk of not being approved or just taking longer time, I would rather have the council consider one of the other options. And I mean, not necessarily a for sure thing, but by using one of the funds or maybe a combination of the different funds that we have available so that we can move this forward, and it will add additional water access to what we currently have. It will add to it. So I just wanted to add that at this time. So I'm going to go out for public comment at this time. Is there any public comment in regards, or any questions, anyone on the phone in regards to this presentation? Hearing now, coming back to the chamber. Yes, is there someone on the phone? No? Okay, coming back to the chamber.
Thank you, Jibjeet. First question I'll ask is, do we know why we have so much arsenic as a whole? Like where it came from in the first place?
We do have a geologist. It's a naturally occurring, yeah.
It's just in the soil as it is?
Yeah, it's natural. Yeah.
Okay.
That's why some of the tests are a bit stronger.
Yeah, sorry. Oh, this, I'm sorry.
I just was saying that's why in some of your testing it shows when you got deeper it actually got a higher concentration because it's just literally the formations you go through, different layers of soils and ground formations as you drill. So yeah, there's no, and that's why when you looked on the map there was like a well literally almost next to another well and it didn't have hardly any arsenic. So it really just depends underground, the way the stratas go, you really can't, you can't really predict it. All you can do is just drill the test well and see what you've got when you do it, what your supply is. So.
Thank you.
Going back to, there was a slide that had arsenic concentration in all the existing wells. Some of these ranges are pretty big, like 7.1 to 49 micrograms, 9 to 46. Is that just the best that we can get? Like, or like, do we have an idea whether that's close to the lower end or the higher end?
So that's a range from periodic sampling. So if the city could, yeah. You might be upside down with your.
I see. So that's just the rates with timeline?
Yeah.
So yeah, see that date there? So this one had like that really high whoop right there. And if you look at the date, 2014 and 2015 corresponds with a really high drought. So you have less water. You know, at my own well at the house, the nitrogens was a little high because we're in kind of a little bit of a drought right now, but it'll probably go back down when we get good rainfalls. So that's why, it's just a spike, it's not like a.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so to answer your question on that range, so depending if the arsenic concentration is below the MCL, then the city has to test it less frequently in that well. But once it starts, like for well 16, for example, there's a lot of test data points on that because it's been, it's consistently steady over the MCL. So the city has to do that one. I don't know if they do it quarterly or monthly, but it's a lot more frequency on that. And so that's why there's that range, because these are results over the last 12 years. So if it's quarterly, then it's quarterly over the last 12 years, and that's why it's that range.
Okay, makes sense. So actually, never mind. That question's answered. Thank you. The next thing I'll say is, so those funding options that staff identified on that last slide, these are all things, when conversation was being had, it kind of sounded like we had access to these funds already. We'd have to apply for every single one of these, right? And these are just 4 different ones that we can apply for?
No, the SRF is state funds granted through the feds. The others are funds that the council can allocate through the direction or the authority that the council has.
So we have the money already to spend?
That's correct.
Okay. The only thing I wanted to mention is I've talked to a handful of residents about water as a whole. I'm not going to act like I understand the whole water situation. Clearly I don't. That's why I'm asking about it. But a lot of folks have been very frustrated with the idea of blending in the past. They see it as a temporary solution to a bigger problem. And I know that's listed as something short-term and there's long-term solutions available. But I would say that if we do blend in the short term, that we do use funds to do something substantial that removes in the long term. Just because there's folks that have been here for a while that are telling me that they're just not happy that this hasn't been addressed. And this isn't just on this council. This is Livingston as a whole. So this is not on one person or on one council. I did want to mention that, though, because I've heard that probably 10 times in the last 2 weeks. So I do hope, given that there's funds available, I'm not sure where council will want to go with this, but that we do something that puts us in a direction to address this in the long term. Thank you. Thanks for answering the questions, too, by the way.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Diego Castillo, resident. Just some feedback. If you guys do move forward on this project, the development, look at it as an investment. A lot of these, some people don't see that when you actually get new development and you get impact fees, you get new water connection, monthly fees, and a lot of these tax bases on parcels that maybe the city's collecting, let's say $50,000 right now in assessed value for taxes, it could be 10 times that when the development's done. So just look at this. It is an investment, but if you guys are able to bring development, some of this will get paid back in the long term.
Thank you.
And costs are not expected to come down. If anything, they're going to keep increasing. So the longer you prolong this, it's actually going to end up costing the city more.
Yes, thank you. Any additional comments in the chamber? Excuse me, can you please state your name for the record?
Anthony Chavarria, Public Works. The graph. I just wanted to make sure council and the residents understand what they're reading here. These are raw concentrations. These are raw samples before treatment. Wells 16, 13, 17. The numbers after treated are ranging from 3 parts per billion to 7 parts per billion, which is well under the MCL. So I just wanted to make sure that the residents and the council understands that these are raw numbers before treatment.
Thank you for clarifying that, because we would have had a lot of complaints.
We should have showed another graph that showed the treatment part of it and what's going out.
Yeah, we should have it said shows after treatment or after blending, but okay.
All right, thank you. Is there any additional comments in the chamber? Seeing none, bringing it back to the dais on 9:19. And then, so would it be wise to even consider, I know that we're looking to, we're looking at treating one well. I mean, we already have one that we're kind of working on. We invested $1.2 million already in it. That's one well. And we know that we need more water. And in my mind, for a few years, actually, I've been on the council now, it's going to be almost 4 years. But during one of our workshops, I mentioned and I presented the idea of like, well, for sure we need at least 2 wells right now, and that was about 3 years ago. We're working on number 1 right now. Is there anything preventing us from working on 2 wells at the same time? I mean, other than funds, and then, but, that'll be the next step if we are to consider funds that we already have. Could we, what would prevent us other than the funding from working on 2 wells at the same time?
Mayor, we're on it, and Christopher alluded to it earlier that we're going to come back in September with another presentation on that.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. There was a conversation some years ago, and while we're looking at this, I'm not talking about delaying any of this, of course not. We need the well and the water and everything, but groundwater is what it is, but sometimes surface water tends to be more stable. So there was discussion sometime using surface water to supplement what we have from groundwater. So I'm not sure if it's still feasible or how difficult it is to get allotments from, so that was something that we also need to consider, because surface water here through the river or wherever does tend to be less polluted in a way, or less arsenic, and because it doesn't come from our rocks and all that, it's rainwater and whatever, and gets treated. So I would also ask that we kind of reconsider that, at least look into it. Yes, there are times that perhaps in times of severe droughts, we may not get our allotment for the surface water. We may have to use it, but it may be something worthwhile, have our groundwater meet our needs, at least the minimum needs, and then use the surface water if possible for additional capacity.
Yeah, you're correct, Mayor Pro Tem. I want to say that a few years ago, the city did approach MID about water rights, and if I remember correctly, they were open to the idea, but I'm not sure how far those conversations went.
Yeah, but it's worth, and to me, in my view, and it's my view, that maybe it needs to be explored, having to drill and then going through and saying, okay, we got arsenic, we got to put treatment for that, and the way things have been going with TCP, it seems to be everywhere. Atwater, Merced, everybody is now dealing with it, even Fresno. So it may make sense to have alternative water sources as well.
Correct, and just to highlight, we have done some testing over in the riverbed to determine what would be the feasibility to extract water basically from the riverbed there, and how that would look like. And also, surface water treatment plant is part of the long-term project list that we have as far as a corrective action plan for TCP treatment, yeah. And we brought that forward numerous times as far as presentations.
Yeah, and this is precisely what I was mentioning earlier, Mr. Mayor, in looking at some sort of study to see if those can be incorporated for long terms. So we can also incorporate it to the rate. Obviously, all that we want to do and need to do, there isn't enough grants and loans out there to help us meet that, and it's going to have to come from the ratepayers. So that may be something we need to at least consider at the same time.
All right. So since this item is just discussion, what does the council, I mean, can the council now give a direction on in regards to funding, in regards to the funding options, or is that something that has to be brought back?
If it's okay, maybe some comments related to which options are more palatable to the council so that we can queue up and prepare a presentation that's more in line with what the council wants us to bring back. That might be okay, and I see Roy nodding his head.
You know, kind of going back, and I know that you mentioned that something coming up in the future, but I would like to see, you know, information and options in regards to moving forward and building 2 wells. We know we need the water, and then possibly divide the cost between the 3 different funds. That way, now one fund is kind of depleted. You know, if that is an option, because also the longer we wait, the more the cost is going to increase.
Yeah.
You know, if we do one well now, and then, you know, in 3 years we do another one, you know, cost is just going to be way out of our reach.
Yeah, and as far as the well 8A, there is no guarantee. In fact, it's more likely than not that if we even go to do another test well, we spend $100,000, and we can keep poking straws everywhere until we find it, and the chance of us, you know, a few wells are $500,000 in. So I would also like to at least consider well 8, at least put, you know, start considering putting arsenic filtration and through blending, and to see how we can accomplish, or what we can accomplish through both.
Mr. Wallace, anything you want to add?
None at this moment, so taking notes.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Does that?
I think that works. It sounds like you all were in our conversation that we had on Monday morning. So glad to see that we're, you know, trending in the same direction.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, guys. All right. Next, we have item number 19.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I need to be excused, sir. I need to go, okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 19, please note that Mayor Pro Tem Samra is leaving the dais at this time at 9:26. Item number 19, discussion and direction regarding a fee waiver for Memorial Park use for the Livingston High School all-class reunion to be held on September 28, 2024.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just saw Nick step out, but just wanted to say thanks to Nick, Noe, and Anthony for preparing that presentation. Good work. Mayor, so this item, I think it came to the council last year as well, so it's a simple request from the Livingston High School all-class reunion to be held on September 28, 2024. A facility use form was submitted by the group for their event. This item is asking whether the council would like to waive this fee and allow this group to use the facilities, Mayor. That's all. Thank you.
All right.
If I may.
Thank you. Is there? Yes, go ahead.
I just want to let you know that I am a current board member to the All Alumni, but I have no financial dealings with the committee.
Roy?
That it doesn't appear that there is a recusal issue.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have comments on it.
Yes, go ahead, please.
I hate extra work, especially extra work for the staff. It says the city council or the city manager can approve this. Why do we require that it come to the city council? My recommendation would be we approve this, have Jackie come back in 2 weeks with a list of the 401Cs that have done this for the last 7, 8 years, that she investigates every year, give that, provide it to the council, we approve it, never have to get another staff report, they send it to the city manager, it's done and over with. One last staff report that Parks and Rec has to create. It just seems a lot of extra work for something that can be solved so simple.
So Mayor, I'll provide a little bit of context here. And Councilmember Wallace, I think that's a great question. Part of the challenge that occurred when I first started with the city was that some groups were afforded waivers and others were not, and there didn't appear to be any sort of consistency. And so as a result of that, all fee waivers were brought forward to the council so that staff wasn't being accused of playing favorites with one group or another group. And so in order to be consistent, this is the reason why they were brought forward to the council, to bring some sort of uniformity and provide some sort of consistency to the community, because there were accusations that there were some groups that were favored more than others, and some had their fee requests squashed and didn't see the light of day. This allowed all these requests to see the light of the day and not be either denied or disapproved by staff. So that's why it is being brought forward to the council.
So, but they were all 401Cs, the ones that complained that they were squashed?
There were multiple different types. There were some nonprofits, there were some public entities or private entities that were also getting certain requests waived. And so again, to provide consistency and uniformity, this is why they were brought forward to the council.
All right, but that still doesn't eliminate the problem, because now we're back to whoever's on the council decides who's going to get it. Now you still don't have any set rules or regulations defining them, which needs to probably be still addressed then, because the council changes. So depending on the council, you could approve somebody that's been approved for the last 3 years. The next council says, no, you disapprove.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. And then also too, even if you have a policy in place, just because you have a policy in place doesn't necessarily mean that the staff would follow that policy. So it's more of a practice that I've implemented to bring transparency to this so that people wouldn't accuse staff of approving things or not approving things without the public seeing it. So the reason for this, again, to provide transparency to the public that this is how these requests are being funneled versus having them approved or disapproved in, the box that is City Hall.
All right, that explains it. I don't like it. That explains it.
I'm going to go out for public comment at this time. Is there any public comment on the phone in regards to this item? 9:32, bringing it back to the chamber. Any public comment in regards to this item in the chamber?
I make a motion, we approve number 1, then approve Livingston High School, all alumni reunion group to use Memorial Park and waive any and all fees.
So at 9:32, I'm bringing it back to the dais, and we have a motion by Councilmember Wallace. Is there a second? I'll go ahead and second that. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Councilmember Wallace.
Yes.
Councilmember Soto.
Yes.
Mayor Moran.
Yes.
Motion approved by a vote of 3-0.
Thank you. Next, we have Councilmember direction on future agenda items.
I know a couple of meetings back, Councilmember Roth, who unfortunately is not here, he had requested how much water Emerald Textiles, and I also supported that. So we do have 2 members there that requested that item, and I believe that was, I want to say, a good 3 months ago. So if that could be brought back, we can find out how much water that Emerald Textiles is using. And then there were a list of items throughout these agenda meeting minutes here that I'll go through and request at another time, but just so that you know that they were brought up in the past, and I will go through the process of seeing who else will collaborate with me, because it doesn't seem that many of my items never got brought to this council.
Anything else?
Do we have, Mr. Mayor, do we have I know textile industries, Foster Farms, are that the only two that have unlimited water set rate in the city? I brought that up to city council a long time ago, before I was on the council. Who has unlimited water other than textile industries and Foster Farms? Is there anybody else that we're not aware of in the city that the public may not know or the council doesn't know?
I don't know. I'm not the engineer, but I'm not sure who in the city would be able to answer that. But maybe if you forward that in an email question to Mr. Lopez, and then Mr. Lopez can send it out, I think that'll be the best way.
Okay.
Because that is a question that I don't have that answer. But probably that'll be the best way. All right. So meeting adjourned, 9:34. We're actually going back to closed session right now. 9:34.